Hello friends and fellow world builders, my name is AJ Winters and welcome back to World Builder. Today we're taking a look at fauna in the Trilands. I'm very excited, so let's dive into it. We're going to be looking into the domestic versus the wild animals, whether we keep them as pets and we use them for traveling or farming, or which ones we hunt for food and steer clear of. But most importantly, why? So last week we had some interesting developments in the Trilands with the River City, and we had some amazing contributions from the community. Not only were people really excited about the River City and how it all functioned with the canal rivers, but we also had some suggestions of animals to add to the Trilands as well. So I'm going to read some of them today from our submissions, and then we're going to crack into some more creations. Shush. Shush, you truck. Shush. All right. Firstly, big shout out to 1000 Backyards for talking to me about the River City and why the rivers flow upwards. They had a really fantastic idea about the River City's religion being something to do with the moon. Potentially a big moonstone in the cathedral building at the very top of the city pulls the water towards it, and that's why the river flows upwards and back down towards the waterfall. I really love that submission, and it also means that we can play a little bit with some priestesses to the moon goddess, potentially. So let's add that to the list and save that for when we dive into magic. Secondly, shout out to Serum76 for submitting some different types of fish to add to our River City. Now we have some fish that our farmers get to farm for. Farm for, fish for, farmers? What am I saying? What happened? This is gonna go in the blooper reel and I know it. So I want to read out some of the creations from Serum76. What a typical name to say when you're all excited. Because some of these creations are really fantastic. So starting off, he has created something called the Triton Trout. The Triton Trout is a food source as well as a material. And something really creative that he has suggested is that the bigger this fish gets, the more inedible it is, which is such an extremely different perspective. He's written that the longer the fish remains in fresh water, the less pleasant the flesh is to consume because of the buildup of the muddy flavor. Isn't that so cool? Ah! Another thing that he has added is that the leather of this fish can be used, not for fighting or anything where you'd be damaged, but for things like bags and boots. And I absolutely adore that the River City would use Triton Trout leather for their bags and their boots. That's just such a fun concept to me. Serum76 has also added that there is a parasitic worm called a sleeping death worm that actually rides on the back of this Triton Trout the bigger it gets. This sleeping death worm utilizes the Triton Trout's large size for protecting its eggs from the usual predators that stationary egg laying would invite. What is this? Thank you so much for submitting this. This is awesome. Ooh, there's also this detail here, which is incredible, that this can be used for medicine or poison as well. In small doses, it has been experimented with to relieve stress and help as a sleep agent. But in larger doses, it can be paralytic to the person that consumes it, and apparently has been linked to several known assassinations around the city. Ooh, things are getting dark and I love it. It kind of reminds me of Belladonna or Deadly Nightshade. And that is so unbelievably cool. So thank you so much for those submissions. And if you want to be a part of something like that, you can join our Discord to join daily conversations about world building, or follow us on any socials because I read all of the comments. So get involved. Now, we're going to move on to fauna in the Trilands, which is super exciting to me. I love creations of animals and plants. It's like my favorite part of world building. Before we get started with that, I wanted to shout out Banjek. Thank you, Banjek, for submitting some names of regions and cities. We're actually going to take one of those names and name the forest that is outside the farming city and nearby the River City. So, introducing Ellswood. I want to go a little bit dark and twisted with Ellswood. I think that some of the creatures that live in there are a little bit friendly, and some of them are very much not. So something that I wanted to dive into was another suggestion from an audience member who said that they would love to see some wild horses in the lands. They wanted to leave horses to not be domesticated animals, and I absolutely treasure this idea. I agree with you. I don't think horses should be used for riding or farming. If anything, wild herds of horses like stallions should be galloping through the forests at nighttime. And something else I wanted to play with is I think that these creatures, specifically horses and other things, are going to be larger than we assume they would be. Maybe because they were left over from the War of the Gods, or just because innately in this land things grow a little bigger. So let's dive into that a little bit further. We're leaving horses out of it, which means we need some sort of creature that these citizens ride and use for farming. I think we should do some sort of large cat. Something feline-ish, maybe a leopard or a tiger, but bigger. Ooh, I like the animals that were used in Avatar. They rode these giant feline-type creatures that had scales and muscles to them. And I think maybe we could do something like that. I also like the idea that they are bred very popularly like chickens, so maybe they come from eggs. If we think about things like the large six-legged creature from Avatar, the James Cameron movie, and maybe even some creatures from Monster Hunters, I think that's where we're kind of leaning with. Those cat-like feline creatures that are also somewhat dragon-esque. Maybe they have wings, maybe they don't, and maybe that's dependent on their subspecies. But I think that's the perfect creature for our citizens to domesticate and ride in some sort of way. That way, the horses can be left as a majestic creature that we do not touch. I like that. Going off that, A, we're going to need a name for these creatures, and B, if we've got them populating the Trilands, they'd be used for farming, so they need to be quite large. Maybe big enough for 1 or 2 people to ride on the back of them. Maybe more so 2. 1 person popularly, but enough space for 2 people. Like a giant motorbike. Also makes them bigger than horses, but in this world, maybe the horses are bigger than them? Yeah, let's go with that. The horses are giant. Again, I like the concept that they come from the War of the Gods. So maybe these horses were big enough for the gods to ride. Now I'm going to dive into the fauna of the Elswood. I found these images of these golem-like creatures, quite large and menacing, but I think that they're really sweet in their nature. Maybe they too are left over from the War of the Gods and protectors of Elswood itself. So maybe there's some sort of magical element to Elswood outside the border of the farming city in the Trilands. And after tossing up a few different names from different nations for the term Forest Guardian, my Discord chat and I landed on the Skorgzeel. Hey, you've reached the part in the video where my footage got corrupted. Welcome. But also, it's the perfect excuse for me to show off this cute top that Witchwood and Warlock sent me. Witchwood and Warlock are a beautiful Aussie pair that are making subtly geeky merch, and I love it. They have beautiful unisex designs, and I reached out to them and they reached right back and sent me some shirts, plus a code for you guys to get 15% off any purchases you make too. How exciting is that? Their website and code will be down below. Now, where was I 3 days ago when we filmed this? Yes, I wanted to talk about the colorings of creatures. I find it fascinating in nature that sometimes creatures have these browns and grays in order to blend into their surroundings, and I thought that maybe we could play around with that too. Taking Elswood, for example, I'm not sure about the colorings yet. Maybe we'll go with some deep reds and rich blues, but we'll find that out in the Flora episode next week. Next week? This week. But maybe these animals can also have some similar colors, like some green or blue furs. And adding to that, maybe we can also play with luminescence too. Maybe there are some glowing fungi in the forests, or maybe they sprout off the creatures too, so we could have luminescent colors in the furs. Ooh, I love that. Also, I wanted to lock in the concept that the creatures are a little bit bigger. But maybe the predators are also big, even the unexpected ones. So going off something that D-Rab suggested in our Discord chat, maybe we'll play around with insectoids. I'm totally forgetting the reference here, but I'll put it in. I have these images of large mosquitoes chasing people? Oh no, is that one of those terrible movies I watched like a really long time ago? It's gone. I can't remember it. I have this idea of a giant mosquito or insect-like creature that is size comparable to a human. And that thought to me is just terrifying. Introducing death knots. 2 feet long insectoids with a skull-like face and a bagpipe neck that allows them to suck blood in faster. Gross. I also think if we're going to play with the runes and teleportation safety circles in each of the cities, there's a reason these cities need safety. And maybe it's because outside the city limits, everything is trying to kill them. Yeah, I like that. We can add that into any D&D game. Cool. Okay, now we have 4 to 5 creatures that we're working with, and we can expand further from them with subspecies. But having these fundamentals in our land means that we can continue to grow and expand from there. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode, and thank you so much to the people that sent in your submissions and suggestions. If you want to be a part of all these discussions that we're having, then join all of the socials and hit subscribe so that you get notified when new videos come out too. Having you all support and be behind this show and submitting your own creations is just phenomenal. I have been overwhelmed by the love and support from my Discord community and my Patreon, so thank you so much. Next week we're going to be diving into flora in the Elsewood, maybe even doing some cute little crafts for it. So, I'll see you next week.